Hi, Jody here from Healing Journey, and I'm here for my weekly Facebook Live. So it happens every week at about 4:30 on this page. You will find me here live. So this week I'm going to be talking about three reasons why you can't get rid of Candida. So Candida has become sort of a buzzword in terms of gut health issues. A lot of people are told that they have Candida. A lot of people think that they have Candida. And a lot of people believe that this is the root cause of their health issues. And so a lot of people will do lots of different things to try and get rid of their Candida. So today in this Facebook Live, I want to talk a little bit about what Candida is and bust some myths around how you get rid of it. And this is a story that's near and dear to me as well, because when I got sick about 12 years ago, one of the first labels that was placed on me was Candida. And so what people tend to do initially is they do what's called a Candida diet. And so basically what this is eliminating all of the foods that feed off the Candida. So Candida can be a pretty nasty infection. It can cause a ton of different symptoms. It can cause skin issues. It can jam up your liver. It can cause mood issues, and it causes those sugar cravings. So if you're craving those sweets, it's likely related to Candida. And so it's actually, there's Candida albicans, and then there's actually Candida species, and it's a type of yeast or fungi. So Candida can live in your intestinal tract, and that's where it can cause a lot of GI upset as well. And then it can also become systemic. So another symptom of Candida can be if you have thrush in your mouth, if you have toenail fungus, or if you get chronic yeast infections, then typically what that means is that Candida has gone outside of your gut and it's kind of floating around all inside your body. So it definitely is not a fun infection. And so a lot of people will start by doing the Candida diet, so eliminating those foods that you don't necessarily, that kind of feed the Candida. It can be sugars, and it can be a whole host of other things. And it's a pretty restricted diet. And then they go through this 30-day regime and wonder why at the end of the 30 days they didn't feel great. And so this can be a lot of people, they've tried the Candida diet and they're like, maybe you felt good on it, and then as soon as you get off the Candida diet, all of those symptoms come back, or maybe it didn't do anything for you at all. So number one is you need to actually figure out, do you have Candida? And the best way to figure out if you have Candida is to do a test called the GI map. And the GI map uses DNA-based technology. So this is the same technology that they've used in crime scenes to figure out, what's living in your gut. And they're going to figure out if you have Candida albicans, Candida species, or other fungi and yeast. So sometimes Candida shows up on the first GI map, and sometimes it takes a few tests for Candida to show up. But we don't treat Candida unless it shows up. So let's say it shows up and you're like, all gung-ho, you really want to treat Candida, and you're not exactly sure what to do and how to treat it. Well, one of the reasons that standard treatment of Candida doesn't work is because Candida is actually a secondary infection. So basically what that means is it's going to grow if there's reason for it to grow. So usually there's other infections going on in the body, whether it's worms or parasites or even bacterial infections. If something is there to cause some dysbiosis, some, imbalance in your gut microbiome, then the Candida is going to take root and it's going to start to grow. If you think about a Candida as much like a fungi, right? And so when you're walking in the forest, you see fungi growing on things that are dead, on things that need decomposing. And so you can imagine that the same sort of thing is happening with your gut. So the Candida is growing in your gut because it's not a healthy environment. And so it's kind of helping your body to break things down that probably shouldn't be there in the first place. So if you go after Candida first off and don't deal with parasites, you don't deal with worms, and you don't deal with bacterial infections, then guess what? The Candida is just going to come back because functionally it's playing a role in your body even if the symptoms suck. And so that's why when you go after Candida, the first thing that you need to do is you need to first sort out, do you have worms? Do you have those parasites? So for me, I had worms, and so I couldn't deal with the Candida until I got rid of the worms. I had parasites, couldn't deal with the Candida until I got rid of the parasites. So first off is you have to figure out, do you have all of these other things? The second thing you need to think about is, do you have heavy metals? And this can be an interesting conversation too. I know I've talked about this a little bit. But if you, think, hey, I don't have heavy metals, I don't work in a heavy metal place, that is completely wrong. Pretty much everyone living in this era has heavy metals in their bodies. So babies are born with 70 different toxins in them. So we're starting out toxic. Right away, we are toxic. And so pretty much everyone has metals. And if you've eaten fish, you have mercury. Unfortunately, a lot of the hair mineral analysis that I do shows up with mercury with people who eat, especially the top feeders like salmon and tuna. All of those fish have mercury in them, and so our body is constantly having to process mercury. Mercury is also found in vaccines. It's found in amalgam. So if you had, the old school fillings, there would be mercury in there as well. And so there's lots of different sources that you're not necessarily aware of that could be providing mercury into your body. If you use the old school, just learned this the other day, the old school contact solution, that also had mercury in it. And so it's safe to say that there are a lot of people who have mercury in their body. And if your detox systems suck, if your liver can't detox very well, if you have the MTHFR genetic variation, or you have other things clogging up your liver, then your body's not going to naturally be able to detox that mercury. And so it's going to start to build up in your system. And guess what feeds off mercury? Candida. Candida will absolutely feed off mercury. So it can be another case of, you do all this work to try and clear Candida and it comes back because it's feeding off the mercury in your body. So in order to get rid of Candida properly, you need to actually begin to clear out the mercury so that there's no reason for the Candida to be there. So that's two things that you need to do, right? So one is you need to get rid of those infections. And the second thing you need to do is you need to get rid of the mercury. So we're getting rid of the reasons why Candida are there in the first place. And again, this is where functional health comes in. We don't just narrow down onto one particular symptom or one particular diagnosis. We want to look at the whole body. And often, one imbalance is playing off another imbalance is playing off another imbalance. And so you kind of need to come at it either consecutively or all at once to address it from multiple different angles. So the third reason why you might not get rid of Candida is diet alone is not going to get rid of that. So you actually need to take herbs along with, and sometimes they don't even really recommend a strict Candida diet, but you need to take these herbs to help your body get rid of the Candida. And so often I'll put people on a 30 to 60 day protocol, typically at the very end of all of the other gut work. So Candida is one of the last things we will deal with. Or we'll, knock it down a little bit, but we'll really start to address it towards the end because we want to see those root causes addressed. And then your body's going to need that herbal support for that oomph to kind of clear it out of the way. One of the things that I use, different protocols, but Saccharomyces boulardii is also excellent. So this is really interesting. It's actually a yeast, but it's a healthy yeast and it's going to keep that Candida in balance. Okay. So that's another way to get rid of Candida. You also obviously want to be eating really healthy, when you are doing this diet, because if you're, eating high amounts of sugar, then you're going to be creating that really nasty microbiome in your body, that nasty environment that Candida is going to want to thrive in. And so part of the journey in getting rid of Candida definitely is eating clean, but it's not necessarily being super strict on a rigid Candida diet to get rid of it. The other thing that we sometimes see with Candida is sometimes it's seen with copper toxicity. And it's often seen sometimes with mold issues because it is, in the fungi yeast family. And so if you're living in a place that has mold, if you have had mold exposure and you're really sensitive, that can also contribute to dysbiosis in the gut and kind of lead to these things maintaining or stabilizing in your system. Okay, well, thank you for joining me for today's live. And if you have any questions, write them below. And I wish you all the best in your healing journey, because, figuring out where to put Candida in the line of things is definitely super important, because order is important. For more information, check out www.healingjourneyservices.com.